And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Phone number 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. So great to be here. As usual, another Tuesday night. And you know, I think I took last week off, didn't I? Took last week off, was not feeling great. And apparently it caused a whole bunch of hoopla in the chat room. And people were emailing me. I had a couple of people who are kind of close to the program who called me. I'm fine, dude. I'm fine, guys. You know, the bottom line is, you know, sometimes you don't feel well. And I know the show must go on, but, you know, every once in a blue moon in the last, 14, 15 years, I need to take the night off. But I certainly appreciate your concern. 888-659-3727. If you're new to the broadcast, don't know who I am or why I'm here, I'm a consumer advocate for men and women suffering with hair loss. I'm the author of The Bald Truth and the Truth About Women's Hair Loss, and I am a guy who's losing his voice. I am a guy who has been dealing with hair loss since the age of 21. Now, if you are viewing this program, and this is the first time that you've ever seen me, you're probably like, well, you're an old cat and you have hair in your head. Well, I've been very fortunate. And I was fortunate enough to make all the right moves to get on FDA-approved medication early on in the hair loss process. But, before I did find what worked for me, what is that noise? Jesus. This whole studio's falling apart. I spent thousands of dollars on some of the same bullshit that you guys are probably spending money on right now. I was fooled, I was conned, I was misled by the best of them in the industry back in the day. My computer fan just busted. Anyway, I'm going to try to follow through with this show. But as a guy who was extremely affected by his hair loss, I decided to learn everything that I could about this really treacherous industry. It's gotten a lot better, but it's still fucked up. At least now we have information that we're able to share. We have resources like our resources, the Bald Truth Talk, the American Hair Loss Association, the IHRS, resources where consumers can really find a safe place to do their due diligence, to find completely objective information, and to learn what they need to know before they make the wrong decision. But what surprises me is that even with all this information out there, even when you look up, hair transplant surgeons and you'll find the IHRS, or if you look up, hair loss treatments and you'll find the American Hair Loss Association, usually number 1, 2, or 3 in Google or in any other search engine. Even though we are extremely prominent, you look up hair loss and you'll find the Bald Truth. People still decide to kind of go around those resources, the resources that we provide, because, we may not be giving them what they need in their minds. And what they need in their minds is a quick fix. What they need in their minds is a lotion or a potion or something to fix their problem. Man, this fan is driving me crazy. And we can't provide that. What we can provide is information. We can provide them with a safe place to do their due diligence. And sadly, what happens is, consumers, especially young consumers or people who are early into the hair loss process, they will, Google hair loss or hair transplants or whatever it is, and they'll find some crazy ebook online with some guy living in his basement who claims to have found a cure for his hair loss, and he's going to sell you this information for only $49.95. and people are buying it. You have no idea how many people contact us who have purchased some bullshit ebook, who've purchased some product that they read about online and that can only be, purchased on a website that's not FDA approved, that's not recommended by the American Hair Loss Association, that is not a part of the resources that we provide, meaning that is not something that is recommended by true experts and scientists in the field. Believe me, if these products and services worked, I swear to God you'd be hearing about them on this broadcast. You'd be reading about them through the American Hair Loss Association and on the Bald Truth. We want to provide as much information on real resources as possible. So I promise you, for all you guys who are out there on the message forums who are really, doing their best to do their due diligence, again, I said that 3 times tonight. This broken fan is driving me nuts. And to do their research and to find help for themselves, if these products and services worked, you would be reading about them through our resources. So please be careful. 888-659-3727. I know Joe from Staten Island is holding on. I also want to let you guys know that tonight we have a special guest calling in, Dr. Jeffery Epstein, IAHRS accepted member. He is a guy that has been with the IAHRS and has been doing hair transplants for a very, very long time. He really has proven over the years that he is doing true state-of-the-art surgical hair restoration, and he's doing something interesting tomorrow. We do a lot of live broadcasts here, but he's doing his own live webinar where you guys could tune in, you can contact him, you can learn, get your questions answered about everything and anything in surgical hair restoration. I wanted to promote that on the program tonight. I wanted to have the opportunity to speak to Dr. Epstein for a few minutes to discuss what he plans to discuss, and even talk about what's happening in currently in the world of surgical hair restoration, stuff that we talk about all the time here. But it's always great to get an expert's opinion and his perspective. So that's coming up in about 10 minutes. Phone number 888-659-3727. I'm pretty sure this is Joe from Staten Island, but let's check and see for sure. Hey, you're on the Bald Truth. Who's this?
Good guest, Spencer. As you know, I've had a very tough week.
You sound like you've been hit by a truck, dude. I got to tell you, you're not sounding well.
I'm not well at all. I was attacked viciously on the Bald Truth Talk.com this week, as you know.
No, I don't know what happened. You know what? Honestly, I tell you, usually Tuesdays are the day that I read the forum. I haven't had time today. I was really busy doing some stuff for business and some personal stuff, so I haven't spent any time in the forum. What happened?
Well, it was absolutely horrifying. First of all, I have to mention Desmond 84. I'm not attacking you personally, Desmond. You're a good poster. Everyone has the right to post.
When did you attack Desmond 84? I don't remember. I mean, I listen to you all the time.
Sure, I criticize him.
Oh, you know what? I do remember that. Why did you criticize him? He's actually a very active poster who really provides, I think, a lot of hope for people out there.
But Spencer, when I'm criticizing, if you don't mind me interjecting, is these people putting out things about Adirond, Hysteran, how much hair it grows, how much hair it doesn't grow. No one knows. How dare these people even state this?
Well, you know what? Listen, they may
believe it.
They may not know, but I will tell you, from the few times the posts that I've read from this guy, he does seem to be a pretty upbeat, positive guy. And I think that's a good thing for the forum, and that's a good thing for young hair loss sufferers who are trying to find some hope, to really have the opportunity to read. So I definitely, I'm going to have to castigate you, Joe, for making him feel bad, if that was the case.
No, I'm trying to retract that. I'm not trying to make him feel. I'm not attacking him personally. He's a great poster. You understand what I'm saying? He's a great addition to Bald Truth. He's a nice guy. I like him very much. He's very handsome. If that's his real picture, I'm not sure about that. But I'm just saying he's a very handsome boy.
All right, Joe, put that away.
Well, I'm not attacking him personally. What I'm attacking, the fact is, people who post about Histogen, Adirond, what it does, it doesn't do. No one knows what it does. As far as I know, Histogen or Adirond can make a normal 7 to fall out of hair. So could do nothing. I have absolutely no idea.
All right.
I'm a hair loss expert.
Okay,
No
well,
one knows.
we'll definitely see. But let's move on from the forum talk. Is there anything new that you can add?
Yes,
'cause
I have
know that
some
people are
news
waiting
tonight.
for people are waiting for the
You
news.
know, people. I'm sorry. So give me a few minutes. I'm sorry.
I can give you like 4 minutes.
Oh, I get that's coming on. That's probably why, right?
That's exactly why.
Okay, let me hurry up. But I don't make up the news like some people do. I report the news. Allergen last week had his conference call. David Picott in charge. February 8th, I studied the transcript.
Okay.
The first question was, of course, to Allergen, what's going on with your Latisse hair loss product? He said, I have no comment at this time on the efficacy of Latisse, what it does or doesn't do. The information will be announced on clinicaltrials.gov within the first half of 2013, which could be next week or 2 months from now. He didn't say what it does or what it doesn't do.
Okay.
That's a fact. He will not comment on that.
All right.
My expert opinion, what that means is he ain't talking because he knows he's holding billions of dollars in his lap.
Well,
That's my opinion only.
and that's good stuff.
That's
I'm
what
glad
I'm
I'm
saying.
glad you brought that to the show. What else you got?
I'm not going to make up the news. I report the news. Absolutely nothing.
Well, good. I'm glad. You know, people don't want you to make up the news. They look forward to your segment every week. However, I do know that there are people out there, I can see the chat room, that get pissed off at you for some reason.
Because I can't make up things that aren't true, Spencer. I can't say histamine is growing 40% of your hair back. I can't say allergens. I can't say allergens growing. I can't say Adaran is growing your hair back because it's not true. I don't have this information. I can't lie to the sufferers, can I? To make them feel better?
No.
You don't lie. I can't lie.
You can't. But, you know, Joe, you have to realize that you have a certain monicum of fame, so you have to have a thicker skin. You have to realize that, you know, there are people out there that are going to criticize you. There are people out there that aren't going to like you and that are tired of you. Know, I'll tell you an interesting story. There's a doctor out there, I'm not going to mention any names, who is a huge fan of the show. He actually downloads the show on iTunes, and he listens to it while he works out. He called me the other day, and he asked me, and he's relatively new to as far as to downloading the show. He's listened over the years, but now he's become a regular fan. And he asked me specifically about you. And first he's like, is this guy for real? And then he actually asked me why I choose to have you on the program to, you know, give the news every week. Because you sometimes, you know, kind of repeat yourself. And I explained that, listen, there's a part of Joe in all of us. And I explained your story. And I explained how when you're not on the program, the truth is we get hundreds and sometimes over the week, thousands of letters, emails. In the old days, it was letters asking why you weren't on the program. People are concerned about your health. People are concerned that you're not part of it. People love the fact that you're on the show. And then you have your haters, just like me, just like anybody else. So you need to get a thick skin. Now, this particular physician is like, he's a little confused as to why, he doesn't really completely understand what you're saying. Because, listen, Joe, half the time it's like you have marbles in your mouth. Let's face it. But here at the Bald Truth, we know what your value is. So you got to forget about what these other guys think and just, stick to your guns, do your thing. And I wouldn't have had you on the air as a regular caller for 14 years if I didn't think you added value to the program. All right, man?
But Spencer, let me say one thing quickly. I can't fabricate the news to make the hell less of us feel better. I only report the news. I'm a journalist. I can't make up news that does not exist.
That's true. That's true. Listen, guys, we're going to take a quick break because I actually have to screen some calls. So,
by the way, are you wearing tablecloth tonight? By the way, I mean, it's kind of odd.
Am I wearing what?
Are you wearing tablecloth tonight?
That's so fucked up, man. That is so fucked up. 888-6...
You're a beautiful boy, Spencer. If I was a woman, you better watch out.
I know that. 888-659... I mean, I know that I'd have to watch out for you. Not that I'm beautiful. 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. Coming up next, Dr. Jeffery Epstein, IAHS accepted member. I'm really excited to talk about his webinar tomorrow, which is going to be live on the internet. Again, 888-659-3727. I'm Spencer Kobren. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us.
The man who's helping to make hair loss history.
They wish to cure us, but I say we are the cure.
It's Spencer David Kobren.
Hey guys, welcome back. Toll-free number, 888-659-3727. You know, guys, it's an international toll-free number. So if you are outside of the country, if you're in Europe, feel free to call in. Also want to talk about the UK broadcast. As you guys know, we are doing a live broadcast for the UK and Europe every other week on Sundays at 8 p.m. GMT time. I got to tell you, the response has been absolutely overwhelming. I am so psyched that the show has been so successful in such a short period of time. As a matter of fact, it's been so successful that the BBC has already contacted us to talk about what we're doing, and there's going to be something on BBC4 radio about what we're doing, about the Bald Truth UK, and about really about the entire hair loss industry. It's going to be a really great half-hour kind of, on-air discussion and, like radio-type documentary about what we're doing here, which is very exciting. Let me give out the phone number again, 888-659-3727. On the line, we have as promised, Dr. Jeffery Epstein, who is a longtime friend of the Bald Truth, longtime IAHRS accepted member, and a guy who's been in the surgical hair restoration field for about 18 years. So this guy really has some chops. He's been around for a long time. He's seen everything. And I have to tell you, in my opinion, he is certainly one of the best hair transplant surgeons in the world today. Let's see. Let me make sure that this is him on the line. Hey, Dr. Epstein, is that you?
Yes, thanks.
Hey, man, how are you?
Great. Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I'm a little humbled, especially coming from you, but I appreciate it.
Well, listen, man, it's the truth. First of all, I've known you for a long time. We know what this industry is all about, and you have been a solid player for a really, really long time, and you've seen it all.
Well, when you I guess devote a portion of your life, as I have, to one area, and been essentially in the trenches. I have seen a lot. Overall, I think it's a great profession. There's a lot of really good people in the field, and and it elicits a lot of emotions as I've been listening to your show. Hearing some of the other people talk. So.
Well, absolutely. Listen, we know that hair loss doesn't physically hurt, but hair loss is really, what we call on this broadcast kind of like a cancer of the spirit. It erodes. It really depends on the person. But in many cases, it really does erode your self-esteem. As your hairline erodes, your self-esteem can go with it unless you're really equipped to deal with it. Listen, Jeff, I wasn't. I got on medication early. I paint my head. I do whatever I have to do. And that's why I kind of understand the psychology of all of our listeners and all of our readers, because I'm one of them. And you see these guys every day, and you treat these guys every day. And I know you kind of see the gamut of, the entire spectrum of the guys that are just, okay, hair loss sucks. I want to try to figure this out and do something about it, to the guys that really believe it's destroyed their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess there's only one thing worse than a guy that feels that his hair loss is destroying his life, and that's seeing a guy that feels that what he did to treat his hair loss ruined his life. Because unfortunately, that not only carries the stigma of you maybe looking older than your desired age, or actual age rather, but once you go ahead and do something prematurely or without a lot of thought, any type of hair procedure, these guys can regret it for the rest of their lives, and that's to me is the thing most importantly. And to get that message out, and maybe on in my earlier years, I maybe had a little bit of feeling like, God, Spencer, why are you discouraging so many people from undergoing a hair procedure when it's such a wonderful approach? But 18 and a half years later, I'm now saying, you know what? The longer I'm out in this field, the more important it is that guys understand all the reasons why they shouldn't have a procedure before they then go ahead and take the leap.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm glad that you realize that, and I'm glad that other guys are finally. It took a long time for the industry as a whole to kind of get what I do, to understand that the bottom line is, if you are presented with a really well-educated patient, a guy that knows the entire scope and possible pitfalls of the surgery, a guy that maybe has come across this broadcast or our resources and learned that, it's not a one-size-fits-all procedure, and they're prepared and understand what they're getting involved in. Those make the best patients, and in the end, the doctors have a much better experience in their practices.
Totally.
So I'm glad that we've been able to get that point across, and I'm glad. Listen, you've told me you agree with it for a long time, and I appreciate what you said. But there's still some doctors out there that don't quite understand why I kind of preach surgery is a last resort. If you're going to have surgical hair restoration, great. I mean, it's life-changing if you choose the right surgeon, if you know what you're getting involved in. But it's always going to be there. It's going to be there for you. So why not really do your due diligence and kind of figure out, what's best for you? Let me ask you a question. You brought up young patients. You brought up guys who are doing surgical hair restoration prematurely. What's your criteria at this point? Since you've been doing this for so long, when you see a young guy coming in, I mean, what do you look for as far as him, whether or not the patient is a good candidate for surgery?
Well, most importantly, they need to be educated, and they can't be making a rash decision. And part of that rash decision is many times it's based on false information, whether they catch an infomercial and they say, oh my goodness, I can have hair in 8 months and never have to worry again and get the chick.
Right.
Or whether it's a guy, a 20-year-old kid that, has been wearing a hat and finally came to terms with the fact that, he doesn't want to wear a baseball cap for another, he's worn it for the last 4 years and now he's going away to, and now he's starting to get girls and he wants to take his hat off. The bottom line is people need to be educated. And people need to be thoughtful about what they're going to do. So that's the first thing in terms of there's no absolute age for that.
So you're looking at the guys if they really seem desperate and they're not well informed, they're probably not great candidates.
That's very true.
Right.
The other thing, of course, is you need to put the hair loss in perspective. And it's more difficult when you're 19 years old or 22 years old and you're seeing yourself shed a lot, which, by the way, is another indication for not doing a procedure. Someone who's actively shedding, it's probably a really bad idea to do their hair loss if they're in a fast, active rate of hair loss. You're only going to, with a procedure, potentially traumatize and thus cause shock loss to the scalp and exacerbate the hair loss. We spend a lot of time figuring out, educating patients and also figuring out all the reasons why we shouldn't do procedures on them. That being said, as you know, Spencer, I have a very busy practice, and I do on average 2 procedures a day, and I've been doing it this way for 18 years. I've got 16 full-time people, but yet we're able to stay this way because of, despite the fact that we turn away a lot. I always encourage guys to shave their heads. I will always encourage guys to just give it some more time and wear their hair shorter, or just give it some time and maybe try medical therapies like Propecia. And I'm a big fan of laser light.
Right.
If we see though someone who's 24, 25 years old, and has lost or is at high risk for losing a considerable amount more hair in that frontal forelock, understands that restoring that frontal forelock does not mean full scalp coverage. They understand that that they will continue to lose more hair, but those kind of patients in the select group have very good donor supply, do not have a lot of miniaturization. They tend to be about as young a good candidate as there can be.
Right.
Now, of course, once you get it to that point, you have that patient that fits all that criteria. They've done some thinking about it. They've been on medical therapy for a year or two. They understand what the goal is of the procedure. And, of course, they have a pretty good donor supply. Then, of course, the next issue is, well, do you then recommend a strip or do you recommend FUE? And you and I have, gone back and forth and discussed the FUE procedure probably since it first came out over 5 years ago, and I've been, doing it since that time, and I still do it. And I think the demand is, as I'm finding in my practice, has slowly increased, but it's not the wonder procedure. However, in a young guy who's 24, 25 years old, because with a strip, the risk of donor site scarring is worse. The scars just tend to widen in these younger guys.
Right.
And because there is still, you want to leave them open that opportunity to buzz cut their hair or cut their hair short. That's probably the most important indication for FUE procedures.
Now, actually, I think you and I have actually been talking about FUE for since, I introduced it to the guys here in North America back in 2000, 1999. You and I have talked about it probably to some degree since then. I know time flies. So it seems like it's only...
I guess it has.
Yeah, it seems like it's only 5 years. But I think that's a really good point. The fact that you would come out there, publicly and say that for whatever reason, younger guys seem to have more stretch scars. And I also think there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, does it have to do to some degree with activity level of younger guys? Do you think that has anything to do with it?
I don't think so, Spence. I really don't. I think it just has, it's the inherent nature of, they have less elasticity of the scalp. But at the same time, their scalps tend to be very loose. Many times these guys, because their hair loss is starting at a younger age, the actual thickness of their scalp is less than that of an older guy. And in general, you do a facelift, for example, or any type of facial plastic surgery on a 50-year-old, he's in general going to heal up better than a 25-year-old. And that has more to do, not so much with activity or exposure to sun, but that just has to do with the nature of their collagen. The collagen is less elastic, and as a result, scars just tend to widen.
So in your practice, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are really looking toward, especially for the young guys, you are suggesting that they consider FUE above strip.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The other thing I'm doing, Spence, is I like to do a hybrid procedure. In fact, I did one yesterday, and a guy flew in from Kentucky, and I probably do 25% of all the cases I do. If you looked at my practice scope, I would say around 25% are pure FUE, 25% are a mixture or 50% are pure strip, and then 25% are a mixture. And what I do on these guys, in general, the back of the head, without going laterally, so in other words, you stay between those nuchal ridges, those two bumps on the lateral aspect of the back of the head. If you stay between that area, this donor site scarring tends to heal up the best. Once you go beyond lateral to those points, that's when the scar widens, and that's where guys will complain of widened scars. We call it the nuchal ridges or the occipital protuberance in a techno speak.
Right.
But the reality is, it really translates into those bumps that are on the side, back of the head. Once you go lateral to that, that's where you get a significantly higher risk of widening of the donor site scar. So what I'm typically doing with guys that like to keep their hair somewhat short, that are very concerned about any scarring, is I'm recommending a hybrid procedure where I'm taking a strip from the back, and that typically gets me anywhere from around 1,300 up to around 1,700 grafts. And then any other above that, if we're doing, for example, a 2,200 graft procedure, I'll take around 250 grafts from each side of the head. The only downside of that, there are several downsides. Number one is that the procedure takes longer to perform because you can only have one person planting while, we're taking the FUE grafts from the other side. The other downside is that we have to shave the sides of the head if we're going to take anything more than maybe 150, 200 grafts per side.
Right.
Because in order to get that, we have to shave the head.
It's interesting you're talking about shaving the head as well, because I actually spoke to a guy, counseled this guy who's actually in upstate New York. He ended up going to another IHS member, Dr. Biener. And the reason he chose to see Dr. Biener as opposed to, he kept asking us about Hassan and Wong or Dr. Ahal or the guys that, are really, they're doing the larger procedures, they're taking out really big strips, and they are shaving people's heads. There is a segment of the population, even the younger population, that don't want their head shaved.
Yeah.
So,
I never shaved the recipient area. I've never understood that. I've never shaved the recipient area, and I've had debates. Remember Alan Feller, who used to shave the head?
Yeah.
I guess Victor and his partner Jerry go and shave the head. I've never shaved the head. I think that it's unnecessary. However, when taking FUE strips, grafts, if we're going to take, we can sometimes make narrow bands,
right?
And we take out, and so the overlying hair will cover over the area where we take the FUE grafts, and we can make several of these bands or strips. But once you want to get more than 300-400 grafts from a head, you really got to start thinking about shaving portions of it, unless someone has long hair. But in terms of, we could argue about, the benefits and the disades of shaving the recipient area, but we clearly do not shave the recipient area. Never have, never needed to, and it may accelerate the course of the procedure if it's shaved, but I prefer not to do that.
Well, I'm curious. So why do you prefer not to do that? You prefer not to do that for the convenience of the patient, or you prefer not to do that for other reasons?
I think it's probably 50-50. The 50% obviously for the benefit of the patient. The average patient of mine is 45, 50 years old, okay, or 35, maybe 40, 45. He's not going to want to go ahead and he's coming to this procedure. He's coming to this procedure because he
wants more hair.
Exactly. Yeah. He wants more hair. He doesn't want to, have a shaved head. He wants to be able to go back to work, 6 days later. He doesn't want to have to explain why he shaved his head. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and that may have to do because I have a relatively mature patient base, maybe because I've been in practice for so long. And by the way, Michael Bean is a great guy. I love Michael, so that was always, you can't go wrong by going to Michael.
No, this guy loves his results, and that's why he went. He's considering a second procedure, but he sees all the stuff out there about shaving and lateral slits and all this stuff, and he wants to make sure that he made the right decision, even though he's happy with the first procedure.
And I find that funny too when I see guys that come to me and said, "Yeah, I'm happy with my first procedure, but I've heard that you're the best."
Right.
And I'm not necessarily suspicious, but I'll sit down with the patient and say, "Well, why wouldn't you go back to your doctor? He did good. He did good by you."
It's the internet, man. You know why? And these guys, they go on there and they sometimes they have buyer's remorse. They're not sure if they made the right decision, even though the procedure went really well. It was uneventful. Yeah. Their hair's growing in, and they read stuff online. They think, well, wait a second, maybe I can get more bang for my buck, or I can get a better procedure. I always tell people, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you went to a doctor and you received the results that you expected, why change that?
Yeah, especially when it's an IRHRS doctor.
Right.
It's not like these guys don't have a proven track record.
Right.
Yeah, I hear you. So anyway, we're talking about the shaving and the FUE. Yeah. So anyway, I think FUE is a wonderful procedure in the right patient, but I think, unfortunately, it's been completely overhyped. In fact, I have an article that's going to be published. They're publishing it in Plastic Surgery Products, I believe. The Hair Transplant Forum is likely going to be publishing it. And lastly, Plastic Surgery Products and Real Self, the website Real Self, they're interested in publishing as well, about where I feel that, unfortunately, some of these manufacturers of some of these devices that automate the hair FUE procedure are giving strip procedures a bad name.
Oh shit! You know how I feel about that. You know how I've spoken openly about the NeoGraft, and it's not that the NeoGraft is a bad device by any means. It's the way in which the NeoGraft is marketed. That's what concerns me.
It's not fair to patients.
Right. I agree. So let's talk about that.
You're depriving guys who are perfectly appropriate candidates for strip procedure, which constitute 50 to 60% probably 70% of my patients. These guys are never going to shave their head. They're going to have a 1 to 2 millimeter wide donor site scar, and meanwhile they're going to get better growth. It's just, I don't think there's any doubt in any sincere hair transplant surgeon's mind that the best procedure, the state-of-the-art, is going to be strip procedure. It isn't. FUE is great for certain indications. And there's other advantages, not just potentially a higher rate of regrowth and a total greater number of grafts available, and plus you don't have to shave the head. And that is that the FUE grafts, in order to improve their survivability, tend to be a little bit larger. You can't. It's not wise. That's what we found, to dissect them down quite as narrow. So the result is we can plant FUE grafts. We need to plant FUE grafts into slightly larger recipient sites, which translates into slightly larger, with the slightly larger recipient sites, that translates into a slight increased risk of damaging surrounding already existing hairs, and also a reduced ability to achieve as great a density because we can't place the graft.
And I would also imagine that you're actually potentially causing more microscopic scarring in the recipient area if you're actually increasing the size of the recipient holes or slits. Yeah. And, people don't get that. They think that I'm somehow bullshitting them. I'm somehow, I want to, hold the reins of the hair transplant industry. I don't want to see it evolve because, Kobren's making so much money in this industry. The truth is, we're just trying to get the truth out there. And I understand the sexiness of FUE. I mean, hell, I introduced it to most of the actually all the doctors here in North America. When Ray Woods contacted me years ago, I mean, he said, listen, no one believes me. I need you to take a look at this. And I did. And I was like, wow, this is a very interesting technique. I introduced it to Rassman, Bernstein, Cole, Feller. I spoke to you about it. I spoke to some other doctors in North America. And some of you guys, and Alan Bauman, of course, and some of you guys really embraced it. But we all knew that it was kind of like, at least at the time, an adjunct procedure. I still don't believe that it can in any way eclipse really, traditional FUT for all patients. But I do like what you said about the fact that you recommend younger patients consider FUE before FUT. And I think that's a very important point that is missed by a lot of other doctors.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. Before we start talking about your seminar, I know Joe from Staten Island wanted to ask you a couple of questions. So let me make sure that I keep you potted up before I take Joe's call. There you go. Hey, Joe, you got like 2 minutes, man. What's up?
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Epstein. Good evening, Spencer.
Hey, Joe.
A couple cool.
Joe, you there? Wow, Joe, man, we just lost you. All right, Joe, call back. And before I take some more calls, let me hang up on Joe. 888-659-3727. Dr. Epstein, let's talk about your seminar tomorrow. Actually, your webinar.
What do you want to know?
I want to know when it is, what time it is, how can people view it, what you plan to talk about.
Well, the purpose of it is we wanted to provide an opportunity for people to sort of get a feel from someone who has been out there a long time, me, who really just wants to speak the truth. And of course, it's my version of the truth. It's given, it's based on my perspective. As we mentioned before, I've been doing this for almost 19 years. I put my ego to rest a long time ago, you know that, and I've also never really played the politics of the hair world. I've always sort of been a little bit of an outsider, not because I don't like people. I like all, most of my colleagues. I've always felt like I see things a certain way. I believe in things. I'm not dogmatic. In fact, I think I'm rather just the opposite dogmatic. But I do think that I've done so many procedures, maybe more than perhaps anyone else in North America over the last, 15 years, and certainly more reparative procedures and procedures on women. And so I have a good perspective, and I don't really, I hope I'm not saying this, I don't really give a fuck what people think about me.
Yeah.
My colleagues, any of my other people on the internet, I just want to, I feel I speak the truth, and I have no other incentive other than because I love what I do, and I like helping people, educating.
And I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thanks, man. And, I think you and I have, we come from different backgrounds, but we're sort of, we both sort of have that same approach.
Absolutely.
And that is, live and let live, and we're going to say what we have to say. And, if you like it, that's great. If you don't, well, go to another website or go to another doctor.
That's right.
The purpose of the webinar is basically I'm just going to talk about my experiences. There's definitely a little bit of promotion involved, but that's because it's my business person is going to be introducing it. But what I'm really trying to do is show a balanced, fair review of what can be done for people losing their hair. Talk about the indications, when medical therapy is indicated. Talk about when medicine doesn't work. What is the role of hair transplants? How to, what constitutes a properly performed hair transplant? I'm going to talk about the differences, much as we discussed a couple of minutes ago. FUE versus TRIP, my perspective on this, my take on it. I'm going to also review some things that can be done for reparative work. And then lastly, a particular of interest of mine is things like eyebrows, beards, chest, and other little boutique type procedure is going to review that. It's basically an opportunity for people to listen, to hear what I have to say, be able to some degree of interaction with me, and
well, how can people interact with you? Can they call in, or is it a live chat? How does it work?
Well, our hope. What we're going to do, Spencer, is after the webinar, because we have pretty much a full hour of material, at least 45 minutes. Our hope is, and these things do tend to run over, but our hope is at the end we're going to open up either phone lines and/or we're going to provide our email address. And my hope is to start getting some emails and be able to answer them live at the end of the webinar. It is scheduled for an hour. Certainly, I'd be able to, if we do get the kind of turnout we're anticipating, be able to have a subsequent one where we answer the questions that we receive. But my hope is to answer, as I always have, answer people's questions either live or within a couple of hours after the
now
webinar.
People can view it through your website or on other websites as well. How does it work?
Honestly, I'm not sure about the technology, and I have to profess a little bit of ignorance here. What you do is they just need to go to my website, and right there is a way to register, and from there they'll be connected. They'll be given instructions on how to connect that evening. We have over 100 people registered so far.
That's great,
and that was like 4 or 5 days ago, and we just put together around 3 weeks ago. So we anticipate over the last minute. The last 24 hours, we're going to get probably another, 75 to 100 more people, which is probably perfect.
That's awesome. So let people know where they can view it on your website. Give out your website URL.
It's thefoundhair.com, www.foundhair.com, which foundhair.com I made that website in 1996, so it's definitely one of the longest lasting sites, right? Crazy.
I cannot believe how fast time is flying. I tell Common Law, who I'm not going to put out, I never put my wife's name out there on the air, by the way.
Yeah.
So I tell her that all the time. Time is just flying by. But listen, I think this is Joe. We have some other calls, but I always leave line one open for Joe. So let's see if he hooked back up with us. Joe, is that you?
Hello?
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, unfortunately, good evening, Jeffery Epstein.
Dude, I think your cell phone is crapping out, man.
Am I potted up?
You're potted up. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's on the air?
Yes, he's there.
Hey, Joe.
You can hear me?
He can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Have you ever heard of a person who had hair transplants that have remained the same length for 25 years? My first question.
I probably have heard of everything, and yes, I have heard of some guys that say that after 15, 20, 30 years later, their hair doesn't grow anymore. Their hair just sort of stays at the same length. So yes, I have heard that.
No, my hair has stayed the same length since 1985. 2 to 3 inches. Doesn't get any longer. The donor area grows fantastic, but the transplants themselves stay the same length. Have you heard of this phenomenon?
Yes, the answer is yes. You don't have to cut your transplants.
No, they stay the same length. The donor area grows fantastic, 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch a month.
How is that? And you brought this up before, Joe. How is that possible, Dr.
I don't know. I'm not a physician. I'm next to the doctor.
Yeah, but I mean, is it about the growth cycle? You're just not seeing the hair shed. It just grows a certain amount of months, and then it just kind of sheds, and then reestablishes itself.
It's the same length. It never grows longer.
I've heard this before, and I probably have seen a couple of patients in your situation, and it's been discussed, Joe, and at some of our meetings, we've talked about, one of the key questions, are hair transplants really permanent? Is there, over the span, in your case, yours was done, how many years ago did you say, 20 years ago?
25 years ago. Stay the same length for 25 years.
Well, that's not typical that it would happen so soon, but I have seen some patients that had their transplants, and we've talked about this at some of our meetings. Are hair transplants truly permanent, or is there more rapid thinning or loss of transplanted hairs than the area where they came in from the donor area? And the answer is maybe. So what you're experiencing obviously is unfortunate, obviously is very uncommon, but I think is a legitimate problem, and it probably has happened, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to explain it.
You know what? I actually appreciate that answer, because the truth is, Joe, you have asked this question once or twice before to other IHRS
Several
members,
times.
and I will tell you this, that this seems to be the most reasonable answer you've ever received, in my opinion. I mean, he's just like, I'm not sure. Everyone tries to explain what the possible phenomenon might be, but Dr. Epstein just said, we're just not sure. We're not sure why something like this happens. And I appreciate that. You're not the only person that's asked this question, Joe. I may be the only person that asked it on the air, but I have had guys who have contacted me who believe that their hair transplants or their grafts just don't grow. For whatever reason, they don't get past a certain length. And I've never been able to answer that question either. So it's got to be some bizarre phenomenon. Now, Dr. Epstein, have people in the conferences spoken about this specific phenomenon before?
Yes.
Yeah. So is it more common than we think?
I think actually there's a couple of old time guys. I love reading these editorials by the old time guys. Guys have been doing this since like the 70s.
Right.
A couple of guys like Richard Scheel, Mario Marzola from Australia. Those two guys. Probably, maybe to some degree, Shelley Kabaka, who's my, as I don't know, but he was my mentor.
Sure.
When you've been around as long as these guys, you're going to see some things which very few people have seen, or at least they didn't recognize it as a phenomenon, but you start seeing it more and more. I don't think anyone has an explanation. There could be a possibility that some fibrosis, scarring takes place in the area of the transplants that doesn't necessarily manifest itself or display itself within the first 5, 10, 15 years. But as we get older, the entire scalp loses some of its circulation. And if you have an area with transplants that already has a predisposition to being, has some scarring with some fibrosis, that reduction in blood supply is going to affect the hair follicles even more than the original hairs. And the result is just what Joe's complaining. That's probably the best explanation. I don't know how to explain it from a cellular level, but I think I can explain it pretty well, I think, from a conceptual sort of anatomical explanation.
Well, interesting. Do you think that's what explains some of the, like the aged alopecia phenomenon, guys that really aren't suffering with male pattern baldness their entire life, but at some stage in their life, whether they're 70 or 75, they kind of start the hair loss process. Well, it's not necessarily a distinct pattern. The hair just gets thinner. Is that the reason why?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I think that's basically what's going on.
Interesting. Joe, did he answer your question?
Yeah, the bottom line is he really doesn't know, because the donor area grows fantastically. I've used minoxidil, Propecia. I've used it all. Now I'm thinking about Latisse in the future, obviously, but maybe that might help. I don't know. Well,
that would be great if it did help, but I mean, I wouldn't pin my hopes on Latisse. I think that it's possible, and again, I'm not sure. I'm not a physician. It's possible that it's going to end up being more effective than minoxidil in the long run. However, we don't know. I mean, we're basing all this information on not just theory, but on what's being told to us by the company.
Yeah. Well, the company says they'll be posting results soon on clinicaltrials.gov for the next couple months. It's the only comment they will offer.
Don't liquidate your other assets. Don't liquidate your assets and put all your money into Allergan stock. I mean, that's not a professional recommendation.
Right.
I'm not telling you really what to do, but I really wouldn't bank on Latisse being the omeprazole being the cure-all, really, Joe.
Yeah, and I think I've expressed it.
You
know what? I'm going to let you ask one more question. Then I'm going to take a couple of questions from the chat room, and then I'm going to let Dr. Epstein go, and I'll take your calls the next hour. So go ahead, Joe.
All right, Doctor, now, people with decreased donor areas, myself, you've been incorporating body hair, beard hair, chest hair in your practice. That's my final question.
We do. We're one of the few practices where we have a pretty regular experience doing body hair. In fact, the leader in the area is Dr. Umar, but he's actually referred patients that don't want to fly out to California to me. We've had some pretty good results. They've definitely been inconsistent. body hair is not a equal substitute for scalp FUE hair. However, it does provide a reasonable alternative for guys that have depleted scalp donor hair. Primarily, we've gotten the best results with chest and beard. I don't even bother with leg and arm and back hair. And it's the regrowth rate is unreliable, but we definitely have seen some pretty good results. In fact, on my website, I have a link to a video on my section of body hair. We actually have a video of a guy that we did, guy from Boston. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself. We did around 700 chest to scalp hairs, came back around 10 months later wanting more work, and the results are pretty impressive. He definitely had regrowth, but that doesn't work with everyone.
Wow.
Joe? Go ahead.
Final questions in the chat room, Spencer, as you see. Do you incorporate pubic hair at all, doctor, in your practice?
Come on, Joe.
I have no
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm serious.
You can't pay me enough to start taking out your pubic hair, Joe.
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm really serious.
See, Joe, in my situation, I have no body hair. I'm like a 10-year-old Swedish boy, so I don't even have that option like you do, and like a lot of guys do. Listen, before we let Dr. Epstein go, questions from the chat.
I appreciate your time.
All right, Joe.
You got
listen.
it, Joe. It's a pleasure.
Just a minute. Thanks for the call, Joe. All right. I'll put you on hold. Is that cool? I'll put you on hold. 888-659-3727. The next hour, I will be taking your call, so feel free to give me a call at 888-659-3727. Lines are full, but I'm sure that as soon as Dr. Epstein we say goodnight to Dr. Epstein, a line will be open, so feel free to give us a call. Listen, we have some questions, Doc, about the permanency of hair transplantation. You just mentioned that there is a question of whether or not hair transplants are actually permanent, and the way that they've been marketed for so long is that the hair that is moved from the back of the scalp to the recipient area is permanent hair. I have been preaching for many years as a non-physician, and I always preface everything that I say by letting people know that I'm not a doctor, that in some cases, and probably more cases than we like to believe, that donor area isn't necessarily permanent. And some of that could be due to what I mentioned before, aged alopecia. What are your thoughts?
I think what you're saying makes sense, Spence.
Okay.
In
you could feel free to contradict me. Like I said, I'm not a doctor.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I think that we do see, there's like many things in medicine, there's a spectrum. Some guys retain their density. I see guys that I did literally 18 years ago that still are holding strong, but in almost every case, in fact, I won't say in almost every case I've seen a guy that I've done at least 10, 15 years ago, let's say they were completely bald, I did a transplant on them, so we can't account for thinning due to loss of original hairs in the area.
Right.
So if they've got a completely transplanted part of their scalp and they come back 10 years later, it would be the exception rather than the rule that they've maintained the same density over those 10 plus years. Now, of course, the decline in density is, number one, usually not that significant. Certainly nothing like what Joe was complaining with the hair stopped growing. And the other thing that's very important to understand is that loss in density is probably mirrors the same loss of density that you're seeing throughout the entire scalp.
Right. And that makes sense for sure. But I think that it's kind of shocking. There's a guy in the chat room that a Boston guy that said that his hair has thinned out considerably, his transplants, since he had the transplant 25 years ago. So I think that it's probably more common than the industry leads people to believe. But it doesn't mean that the transplant is not working. It just means that's the natural course, and that's basically what genetically what you've been given. So it is possible, but I mean, if you can, hold on to your hair for 25 years, I mean, you're living the best part of your life with a full head or at least a head of hair. I think it's still a pretty good option. So I don't think people should be overly concerned about the long-term permanency or slight thinning of the recipient area when you can enjoy so much life with more hair.
That's right.
So listen, Doc, I really appreciate your time. Please give out your website again. And you know what? I would love if your staff could post again on baldtruthtalk.com tomorrow morning before the webinar, I should say, when people are, so that people kind of can be aware on baldtruthtalk.com that they can check you out. So give out your website again.
Oh, thanks, man. Foundhair.com, www.foundhair, F as in Frank, OUNDHEIR.com. And they'll, right on the website, right on the homepage, we've got a banner that directs people as to how to register for the webinar.
And what time is it tomorrow?
I'm sorry, it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Obviously 5 p.m. out on the West Coast.
That's great. Okay, well, listen, Doc, thank you so much. I will be there checking you out, so good luck with everything, and
Thanks,
I look forward to seeing how it works out.
I appreciate it, buddy. Take care.
All right, man, have a good night.
Keep up the good work. Really, you're a good man.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Really, from the heart. Take care, man.
Okay. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. It looks like we just lost our feed on I think Vaughn Live. You may have to switch over to Justin TV. We have to take a quick break. 888-659-3727. I'm Spencer Kobren. You're listening to and watching The Bald Truth. We'll be right back after these messages.
Coast to coast and worldwide.
I just want to say, you guys are doing a great thing. It's such an uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially for a guy, young guys in their early 20s. And, I'm glad that, I can tune in and, listen to you guys.
Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, thanks for bearing with us. We had some technical difficulties. That's the nature of live internet broadcasting, man. No one really does, or very few people do what we do. And it is not an easy process getting our audio, video, and this live stream together in the quality that we put it out there is it's pretty damn hard. And every once in a while, we do have technical difficulties, but thank you so much for bearing with us. I want to thank Dr. Jeffery Epstein, IAHRS accepted member, for joining us tonight. I have to tell you, on a personal note, Dr. Epstein he's a good guy, man. He's a good guy. He's done a lot of great things in the industry. And sometimes I don't think he gets enough notoriety online. The truth of the matter is, he's been doing this for a very, very long time. He's always kind of been steady, just focused on, in my view, what, the best interest of the patient. And that isn't always sexy. That's not something that always gets a lot of online notoriety. But the truth is, I think his results speak for themselves. 888-659-3727. So check out his webinar tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time at foundhair.com. And I hope that he promotes it a little bit on Bald Truth Talk. I will contact his office to make sure they put something up. I think it's great. Anything that we can do to promote live interaction on the internet, the fact that you guys will be able to, connect with him and to learn more about, possibly some questions that you have, I think it's great. Our phone number, 888-659-3727. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. We're going to, I actually have an appointment a little earlier tonight than I expected, so I may have to leave a little early tonight. We'll see what happens. We'll see what common law says when she knocks on the door. 888-659-3727. Joe, I'm going to take your call first because you've been holding on, obviously, the entire night, and you had the opportunity to speak to Dr. Epstein. I hope he answered your questions. I got to tell you, that was the first doctor out of all the guys you've spoken to that I believe really had kind of somewhat of a reasonable answer for you.
But that's what he doesn't know.
Isn't that reasonable? He wasn't trying to make up some shit.
Right. Everyone else gives me bullshit answers. He has absolutely no idea.
I thought it was great.
Well, that's what I tell you. All the doctors who studied me have said the same thing.
Yeah, but he did say that he's
always growing. It's in my mind.
Yeah, but there are guys out there that said they've never heard of it, or he kind of recognized the phenomenon and admitted that this does happen. He's been around for a long time, and this does happen, and they don't know why for the most part.
I mean, if a hair transplant is not a success, it doesn't grow. Period.
That's correct.
It doesn't grow 3 inches. It doesn't grow at all.
Right. But the fact that he mentioned that there is some perhaps microscopic fibrosis, scarring, in the graft area that might be inhibiting. I'm getting drunk. Inhibiting full growth. I think that's, that's a very interesting theory, and I think that it makes a lot of sense. I doubt that most doctors would admit that's even a possibility. You know what I'm saying, Joe?
Well, Gary Hitzig's told me that I could, if I shaved the top of my head, it would grow back to the same length. That was his answer.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I hear through the grapevine that last week when I was not on the air, that Bald Jerry was giving me some shit. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
No, Bald Jerry is a friend of yours. He only compliments you, Spencer.
Listen, I don't mind if he does. I'm a public figure. I'm entitled to get some. It's fine if someone's giving me shit once in a while. But I heard that through the grapevine that Bald Jerry was giving me some shit. Spencer.
I honestly didn't see that. He's one of your biggest fans. A lot of guys were attacking you for being out last week. But Jerry wasn't one of them.
No, I like Jerry. I think Jerry's great.
Jerry's great.
He contributes a lot to the chat room. I'm glad that we're here to be able to to give him the opportunity to to have a safe place to learn and to share and to be a part of something. I was just a little surprised when someone, I'm not going to mention who, said that Bald Jerry was giving me shit. I'm like, Bald Jerry, really? I love Bald Jerry.
But Spencer, you got to understand, sometimes people impersonate other people on the chat room.
That's true.
And Jerry, I know, as far as me and Jerry are very good friends, he's one of my biggest fans. He's never said anything negative about you, except he doesn't understand why you don't promote Go.
It's interesting, Jerry. I am probably the one person in the hair loss world who actually allows Go to be promoted more than anybody else. The fact that we created a section for Dr. Go on the most trafficked and most viewed hair loss forum in the world, I think is pretty compelling. And I think that if you contacted Dr. Go himself, he would tell you that it's been a tremendous for his business. Now, at this point, I cannot recommend Dr. Go to a friend or to a family member. I have not necessarily seen all the evidence that I need to see to be able to do that. However, I've seen enough to believe that I think he's onto something. So I'm allowing the conversation to go on in his own separate area on our message forum. So that's pretty powerful. So to say that I don't promote Go, while I might not give him the complete thumbs up, I allow that conversation to happen, which is, in the online world, it's extremely powerful. So I think you guys have to kind of look at it in that way as well.
Yeah, Spencer, I thought that, it was very informative. Let me ask you one question, if I might. Why are people dismissing Latisse so much if they have no evidence as to whether or not it works? Because no one really knows except maybe the insiders that allergists.
I don't think that they're dismissing it. I think that they kind of, a lot of these doctors have seen the way that it works within their practice. They've all experimented with it over the years. Jeff Epstein is a guy, I'm telling you, the guy's in the trenches. He is not someone, for whatever reason, that really spends a lot of time online. He's not the Hassan Wongs or the Rahals or the guys that really have this, really strong online presence. However, he's been around forever, and the guy has seen everything. And I would certainly trust what he has to say about Latisse. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to take another call, Joe. I'm going to keep
I was just saying, but no one knows what the stronger version of Latisse will do until it comes out on clinicaltrials.gov. This is all opinion. I'm not criticizing Dr. Epstein personally. I'm just saying that this is all opinion at this point.
I agree with that. Joe, I'm going to keep you. I'll keep you potted up, all right?
Thank you, man.
Sure. Hey, you're on the Ball Truth. Who's this?
Hey, Spencer.
Hey, who's this, man?
Spencer. Hey, Spencer. It's Sam. How are you?
Sam, how are you? What do you got going on in the background, dude?
I just went outside watching a movie or something in the apartment.
So what's happening, man? I saw in the chat you were asking if you can Skype in. You know what? It's probably not that. We can allow that to happen, but I've tried it in the past, and I've had guys who have. Initially, we tried to do video Skype, and you never know what's going to pop up on video Skype. So we decided not to allow that to happen. So we're just going to keep it in the phone system. So what's up?
I respect that. Just I have a bit of a situation. Like I didn't have my cell phone on me, and I would like to call and ask some questions. Then I figured it out, so it's all good.
So what's up?
Okay, well, I have some questions. First of all, have you ever heard of this? I know you don't like this area. You stayed Echoes. You ever heard of the lady who runs this site called the Healthy Paradise?
No idea.
Really? Okay. Well, she's pretty famous on that. Like, I mean, I've came across her site several times, and she seems to have a decent fan base. And pretty much, what she does is she pretty much says how dieting can completely reverse the process.
You know what? You're breaking up, man. Say that again.
Yeah, she pretty much said how dieting, eating healthy, low glycemic diet can literally reverse any hair loss.
Well, if you read my first book and my second book, The Bald Truth, and the book the revised version in 2000, I actually wrote a chapter on the glycemic index and the fact that I believed that it could actually help with hair loss. And I actually had Dr. Barry Sears, who provided some information in the first book, write a couple of pages on the diet, on the Zone diet, which is a low glycemic index diet. So I know all about that, man. I'm a big believer.
Oh, okay. Because it's interesting. And so you do really think that would help if someone were to cut out like all these.
You know what, man? I can't believe you're a fan of the show. You never read the book.
No, I should. I really should, Spencer.
You know, I know it's old school. The original book was published in 1998. The second book in 2000. But the truth is, and this is not to toot my own horn, wrote the first chapter on diet and hair loss, and the fact that I certainly believe that a low glycemic index diet can help with lowering DHT levels. So for sure,
completely reverse and eradicate.
I do not believe it can completely reverse and eradicate it. No way.
Okay, you believe it plays somewhat of a role. Okay,
it plays a more significant role than most people believe.
Okay, interesting. You know, I somewhat believe that. And you know what? And these kind of things are not like you're wasting your time. You know what I'm saying? These are the kind of things where you're becoming a healthier person. You're living a longer life. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
I mean, even if you were to be wrong, which I actually really believe that. I really believe that this stuff does help. And even if it weren't, you're nothing to lose. It's not like you're wasting money. You're doing only good for yourself. So that's just one thing. I'm actually looking into that.
I agree with that.
There's another thing. I guess I lost that image, but I wanted to talk about black tea extract.
Say that again.
So there was a study conducted in Harvard. I'm sure you know about this.
Well, can you repeat yourself? You broke up for a second. What was that?
Oh, sorry. I can go outside. It might be easier. I wanted to talk about black tea extract.
Black tea extract, okay.
As you know, there was a study conducted in Harvard, and it reduced DHT. I think it reduced DHT from both enzymes, so alpha A reductase and alpha B reductase,
right.
Which alpha A reductase is very necessary for other parts of the body, like the brain, and I think muscles as well, muscle contraction.
Well, I think you're talking about 5-alpha reductase type 2 and 5-alpha reductase type 1.
Exactly. So
right.
Apparently black tea extract blocked both of those enzymes, but apparently it blocked it more than Propecia apparently does. Now, I don't think, just off the bat, I don't think that natural pills can really have that strong effect that Propecia does, because, I mean, if it did, I think more people would be using them. But I do think that if you have other things in your regime, it could really boost it up a bit, or even help you with the integrity overall. Like, they're more than just inhibiting DHT. It's also, no matter how much you inhibit, you still have to flush a little bit that gets to the scalp. I mean, I'm asking your opinion, but that's more or less mine.
I'll give you my opinion. You know, and again, you know, if you read and you didn't read the book, but back in 1998, I also wrote a chapter about herbal therapy for lowering DHT, and I wrote the first chapter that described the use of saw palmetto, Pygeum africanum, and stinging nettle as a DHT reducer for hair loss. Unfortunately, what happened is, because of the success of the Bald Truth, there were several companies that came out with these herbal nutritional supplements for hair loss that really never proved to work. I believed, based on at least one journal article in the American Academy, the American Journal of what is it, JAMA? What is it? The American Journal of something medicine. Can you help me with that? What is it? What does JAMA stand for? Do you know?
I'm Journal of American Medical Association.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So, so the article came out, and this was years ago. This is about, I think, 97 or 98, that saw palmetto, Pygium africanum, and stinging nettle actually lowered DHT levels more than finasteride or Proscar. So I concluded in my book that there's a good chance that if you can lower DHT naturally, you might be able to avoid the potential adverse side effects of finasteride. What we've learned over the years is that a lot of guys were combining finasteride and saw palmetto, just like you mentioned, to kind of give that extra boost. And people were actually suffering more significant adverse side effects by combining the nutritional supplement and finasteride. So I think it's really something you got to be careful about. All these herbal products really come from nature's pharmacy. So you can actually suffer the same type of adverse side effects, whether it's from black tea, whether it's from stinging nettle, whether it's from anything that lowers DHT. So you really have to be careful.
Spencer, most importantly, I mean, you keep saying that, and a lot of other people keep saying that, but what you got to understand is, I think people are concerned about side effects, but that's not what's driving everyone crazy, because every pill has side effects, people still take them. What's driving people crazy about finasteride is the syndrome after you get off. It's post-finasteride syndrome.
Yes.
That's what really scares people, and I'm pretty certain that doesn't seem to exist with natural supplements.
You know what?
So,
Honestly,
I'm comfortable taking them.
I cannot. I don't know for sure. I do know. I remember one case, a guy that contacted me years ago, who just took some of the herbal supplements that I mentioned in my book, and he believed that he had long-term adverse side effects. I haven't been in contact with this guy for years. He had stopped using the supplements, and in his mind, at least, he believed that he had a lower libido and less sensitivity down there. So I do think that it's possible.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't single out one. I wouldn't use one person wouldn't scare me. I mean, realistically speaking. But I hear that. I definitely hear that, and that definitely sounds pretty interesting. Okay, there's also another thing I wanted to ask, and I want to know your opinion on this. And it seems to be a bit of a hype lately, and it's Allergan and the Latisse, right? Everyone's talking about it because I think people are starting to realize that maybe this is coming closer to life. It's not like that 5-year story. It's more realistic.
Yeah.
So,
No.
Joe, what do you want to say?
No, sorry. Let me just make this quick. So now,
I had to deject
with respect to natural remedies, personally, and I think the most amazing one out there is emu oil, and I've talked about this before. I don't think necessarily it's a DHT inhibitor, but what it really does is it reduces inflammation. And I think the reason why people are seeing such great results is because it's tackling it from a whole new angle. And as we know, that's why people recommend, that's not necessarily from a whole new angle, but that's why people recommend to take finasteride and minoxidil at the same time.
Right.
Because that, in effect, seems to have that seems to do it a lot better. Now, we're tackling this now from a whole new angle. So we were always under the impression that DHT plays the most significant role. We still assume it does play a very strong role. We're realizing that there's something out there that might be just as strong, and that's that PG, that protein that causes the scalp to cause inflammation.
Yeah, but Sam, we've known for a long time That's right. We've known for a long time that inflammation, body inflammation, scalp inflammation, actually plays a role in male pattern baldness for sure. We've known that for many years. We really
I agree.
In the last, I'd say the only time for a very short time we believe that DHT was the main culprit in male pattern baldness. Yeah. Within the first 3 or 4 years of Propitia's approval, science realized that it wasn't just dependent on DHT, that there were other factors involved, including what you're mentioning, which would be inflammation. So, by keeping your body more alkaline, by kind of lowering your castanoid count or your glycemic index, you can really, and I wrote this in 1998, I really believe that you could help to prevent significant hair loss. And it could really be something that could really benefit you, along with, using FDA-approved medication.
No, I'm really just speculating here, and I'm guesstimating because I really haven't. I'm not a doctor, and I obviously not. But I'm just thinking here. I'm thinking that this inflammation happens more or less in the earlier stages of hair loss. So, I think so. I think that younger people would have a lot more benefit from this approach than people who have lost that follicle. That follicle's been sleeping, been dormant for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. I think that.
Well, I think that's actually a pretty reasonable theory, to tell you the truth. And I think that the guys that are able to utilize these treatments and catch it early on are the guys that are going to benefit the most. Guys my age who have been dealing with the balding process for a really long time, who have been fortunate enough to catch it at an early stage, as our testosterone levels are decreasing, and as our circulating DHT is getting less and less, we seem, at least before the age of 65 or 70, seem to go through a slower process. So I definitely think that the guys that catch it early are the guys that are the young guys are the guys that have to deal with the inflammation issues and the higher DHT levels. So if you're able to catch it early,
to add to that, the level of speculation, and this is purely from observing. What I notice is sometimes I see my friends and 20 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old. I don't see them for a couple of years, and I see them again, and I notice that there's a real significant difference in that hair loss. But it would make no sense, because if that pace were to continue, they would be full-blown Norwood 7 before 30. So what I'm thinking is, perhaps there's kind of like a wave where it has more of an aggressive time, it has less of an aggressive time. And I'm thinking that for whatever reason this kind of pattern occurs. If you were to avoid these heavy waves, I think down the long run, you were to keep a lot more.
I agree. I agree with that.
You get what I'm saying? Because, like Spencer, you can speak for yourself. It looks like you've stayed the same way for many years.
Yes.
Imagine at that time where you seem to be having like more of an aggressive regression and loss. Imagine you were to just somehow avoided those periods of times. Don't you think you would have a lot more right now? I'm talking even the span of 6 months, 8 months.
Yeah, and I agree, and I will tell you that the fact that I was able to, I changed my diet pretty early on. I kind of adopted the zone diet, the low glycemic index diet, even before I got on finasteride, and I certainly believe that helped me with my strong tillage and effluvium that I was going through. When I got on that diet, things really started to kind of like calm down and settle. And then when I was on that diet with finasteride and minoxidil at the time, it was a home run. I did really well. So, it's interesting that you kind of came up with this theory even without reading the book, because the truth of the matter is, I believed this for a long time. So,
I know. One more thing. Also,
Joe, what's your problem, man?
Spencer, I'm here. I'm fuming. Can I please interject, Sam, if you don't mind?
Go ahead.
Can I please interject?
Joe, don't kill me here.
Joe, I'm drinking Jameson's. I'm having fun with Sam. Let's try to relax. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah, go for it, Joe. Go for it. Give it all you got.
So give me 5-minute break. I'll get a jar of Vaseline and take care of it.
Oh, Jesus. Come on. What do you want to say?
Oh, Sam, first of all, you're correcting 2 things. You're a very informative caller.
Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate that, really.
I like you very much. You're a good, nice Canadian guy.
You know what, Joe? I think people would think like you're so much more serious and intellectual if you wouldn't have these like 6-year-old conversations in the chat. No offense.
I agree with that, man.
Because you're a smart guy, Joe. You know what I'm saying?
Like a lot of gay cats in the chat coming on to me.
Yeah, but who cares? Who cares? Okay, go on. Listen, let's get to the point. What's up?
All right, here's the story. Halligan is not 5 years away. Halligan will be making an announcement on clinicaltrials.gov any day now, any week within the next couple months. This
I don't want to hear that, because that's hope. We don't want that.
I have to correct you on that, first of all. And you're right. DHT is not the sole contributor to hair loss. If you were castrated, male is castrated, he would not grow one hair. So that answers it right there. Am I correct, Spencer?
That is true.
As you know, I'm a student of transsexual experience.
Yeah, but if someone is castrated or becomes a eunuch before puberty, then they will never lose their hair. You know that, Joe,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. What if you're castrated at the age of 50? Because either your follicles won't actually die.
Say it again?
If you are castrated, because what I'm a little confused about is scientists, I mean, I'm sure they're focusing on this, what they should focus on is what is the difference after we have this impression where the follicle dies? It doesn't really die, but what's the difference between where treatments no longer come responsive to, your follicles no longer respond to treatment, and when your follicles can still respond to treatment?
The hair follicle never dies.
That's the real secret, right?
Well, I mean, I think that, unfortunately, everybody is different. So,
Hello?
I mean, Joe, you there?
Yeah, sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
We totally got you off.
The follicle never dies.
I went on a tangent here.
So genetically, we all react differently. And that's the thing. There's not a one-size-fits-all treatment. Unfortunately, I wish there was. So, in my case, there are many guys that say, okay, I started balding early, but I caught it early enough. But, if you look at my family, genetically, I probably shouldn't have been a Norwood 7, maybe a Norwood 5. So, but
you can never know that. You can never
that's
know what you could have been.
But initially, my progression was aggressive. And I had a tremendous amount of shedding, and it was very, very noticeable. I mean, in a very short period of time. So, am I the anomaly? Am I the guy that has done so well on finasteride compared to other guys, or is there a genetic factor? We just don't know what the situation is.
Yeah. Can I say something to that?
Yeah.
I'm going through a lot of learning. And my problem is, and you get that, and you said everyone's different, and I think I made a little bit of a mistake entering into my regime. And I knew I was making this mistake, but I think the fact that I wanted to get control of it so quickly caused me to do it this way. What I did is I tried a whole bunch of things. Now, the problem with that is I can no longer isolate it. I can no longer isolate what's effective.
That's a huge problem. The one thing that I've preached since the beginning of this broadcast and when I wrote the book was, you really don't want to throw the kitchen sink at your hair loss because you want to know what works. You don't want to have to take something for a lifetime, especially if you don't know if it's benefiting you.
I agree.
And it's a big problem with a lot of guys, especially the young guys out there.
But if I were to play the devil's advocate, I don't care what I'm doing as long as something's working. Because at this point, I'm really my mind is really playing games with me in the sense that I'm feeling so confident about how it's working. And I got a haircut the other day, and I was like, holy crap!
Well, dude, I've seen your images, and at least in your pictures, I mean, you have a full head of hair.
It's more recent. I'm saying I was losing a bit. I was hiding it because I had very thick hair. I was able to hide it really nicely. And
right.
What I'm learning more and more is as my hair gets better, is perhaps I'm losing a lot more. I was losing a lot earlier than I thought I was losing, and that's the thing. As long as you're not, let's say, receding, you don't really necessarily notice this stuff, especially if your mind is not focused on hair loss. When you're 13 years old, you can even be losing hair. Your mind won't trigger this as hair loss, at least in many people. So what I'm noticing is, even as a kid, I always had a high hairline. I always had it. It's part of the genes. And we don't have such bad hair genes. And that's why I'm also a little concerned because I'm realizing I'm doing something wrong. Or maybe I seem to have a little more of an aggressive gene than my family. But either way, what I noticed is that I've reversed a lot of it. And the thing I worried about the most is becoming the least of my worries, which is amazing. And it's also confusing because I didn't focus on the back of my head, the crown.
Right.
And I'm starting to think, and I don't know, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I'm starting to realize the texture. And I am shedding a decent amount, and I don't know why. And maybe it's because I'm trying different treatments. I don't know what it is, but I am shedding a little more. But overall, what I'm noticing is perhaps the quality of my hair is slightly starting to change. And I'm noticing this when my hair starts getting a little longer than it normally is.
Right.
And it's concerning me because I think overall my hair count is growing.
Well, let me ask you, how old are you, by the way? I forgot.
I'm 23. I just turned 23.
Okay, and you basically keep your hair relatively short, right?
Yes, but honestly, if you were to see me, you wouldn't think I have any hair loss, more or less. I mean,
right.
More or less you would be able to, but I notice these things because it's my hair, and I'm checking it all the time. And I'm noticing about 20% of a decrease on my crown. And I'm not liking that at all. Because for me, the second I see crown, I know that I'm no longer in the baby game. I'm heading more into moderate game because it's not this. It's dispersing more from the center, and it's much harder to maintain. Although people more or less care about the front because that seems to frame the face. When you start losing from the crown, your mindset of all this starts to change.
All right, so Sam, remind me, are you on finasteride right now?
No, a year and a half ago, I was on finasteride for 3 months.
Right, and you chose
got off it.
And why?
I got off it because because it's too much of a mind fuck. I don't know, because for me, I'm very, very, I always analyze things. I always speculate things. My mind is always on full blast, like trying to figure things out, why this, why that. And the second I took that finasteride pill, I was like going crazy. Like every single thing I was going through, I was associating with finasteride. I took a shower in the morning and I heard buzzing in my ear.
Yeah, and that's it's funny. That's not atypical now. It's so unfortunate in my view. And again,
I know, and I'm so upset at myself because realistically speaking, I know that if I have to resort to it, and I don't know if I will because it's a very long-term thing, but I might start taking like a quarter of ProStar once every 2 days.
I'm going to give you an anecdote. I had a buddy who called me up, my best friend in the world, a guy that I grew up with. I knew him since the age of 10, one of my best friends in the world. And I've been fortunate enough to know guys that I've grown up with from the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we're still friends. I got on finasteride about 20 years ago, and he was starting to go through the hair loss process around the same time as me, maybe, a couple of years after me, but he was very resistant. After he started to notice that he was getting, some noticeable thinning, he contacted me, asked me about my experience, and I told him, this is way before all of this stuff was coming out online. Started taking it. The guy basically has a relatively full head of hair. This is about 13 years after he started taking it. He contacted me recently after his drugstore actually decided to give him, he was originally on Propecia. They gave him a generic finasteride. He looked it up to see if it was the same thing, and he started to read all the stuff that's being posted about finasteride online now. He contacted me to ask me about, my thoughts on this. And I said, listen, you've been on this for like over 10 years. Have you had any adverse side effects? He said, no. He goes, but now that I'm reading this, I'm concerned. This is a guy who had success for over 10 years. And just by reading a couple of comments, he started to think about it. And that's what I think. I think guys are doing themselves such a great disservice by not really looking at the clinical trials and reading all the stuff that's online. That's just my opinion.
I agree, because overall, I think I'm a great responder. By the fact that I was able to reverse my front, gives me a lot of confidence that I'm a good responder. But I have to tell you something, Spencer. You've never gone off it. So you don't know how it's going to be when your body's trying to readjust with you.
I have no idea, but why would I go off it?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. You plan on never getting off it, and that's good news. But here's how I'm looking at it, and it might be a little crooked. For me, I might. And this is why I would consider, this is the only reason why I would consider taking finasteride. And I think my way of thinking is relating to a lot of young people out there. You have to understand the approach is very different from young people than older people. Now,
and listen, I get, by the way, I get what you went through. I get what you're talking about. And I would tell you this, and I'll let you finish your thought, that if I were new in the game and I was to go online and read this stuff, I probably would never take this drug. And that's unfortunate because, in my view, this drug changed my life. But go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, for me, this is my mind state, okay? Now, listen, I'm a hard worker. I'm hoping that I can get a good job in the future, and money won't be much of an issue. So for me, I'm thinking of it this way. I have to get a solid 10, 15 years. Let's be realistic, okay? Let's not hope on this 2, 1 year, 6 months stuff. Let's just say 15 years from now. No, that's less. Let's say 10 years from now. Do you think this game is going to be different? I'm pretty confident it'll be very different.
For
whatever reason, there's not just money to make. There's the target audience, the amount of money to be made in this industry is something that we can't fathom. Like there's so much money to be done in this industry, especially when it's become something which is realistic. Because at this point, this industry is at a standpoint which is somewhere on a fantasy level. It's this idea where things can work on a marginal level. When you get something straight up effective, 80% can regrow almost all their hair, blah, blah, blah. I guarantee you people who don't even care that much are going to start taking this stuff. Because why not? I like nice hair. Now,
but I also believe, I'm going to cut you off, that in 10 years they're going to figure out what this post-finasteride syndrome is, because there are guys that are actually currently studying it. And I'm not sure what the reality, as far as the sheer number of guys that are complaining about this. I don't know what the reality is, and what percentage of guys are actually suffering with psychosomatic side effects. But whatever it is, I know that there is a percentage of guys who are dealing with real subsect of guys real adverse side effects.
And that's why someone has to think about it. And I'm not against Propecia. Trust me,
Right.
I wish I can take it. But what I'm trying to say is, right now you might care more enough to even take that risk. But the real thing we all have to put in perspective is what happens if we change, all right? What happens if we become a little more normal, a little less crazy in this matter? In 10, 15 years from now, we might look back at that decision and really regret it. And that's why I'm this hesitant to take that Propecia. Because right now I think it's worth it. Right now, yeah, this agony and this stress, if I can get rid of it, and you know what, it's not that crazy, but sometimes it's a little overwhelming. If I can take that pill and avoid all of that, then yeah. But I'm saying in 10 years from now, when I go through its life cycle, all right?
Let me ask you a question. Do you have a girlfriend right now?
Yeah, more or less. It's a little complicated, but yeah, we're
so is the women in your life have they taken oral contraceptives, birth control pills?
I assume so. Yes. Yes. Specific. Yes.
All right. And are you guys aware that using oral contraceptives, there is a larger percentage of women that are suffering with sexual dysfunction?
Yes, I've read that.
Because they're using oral contraceptives, and we're talking about not just girls who are taking at a young age and they find that they have lower libido or issues with orgasms, but people that have been on it for years that then get off it are complaining of long-term adverse sexual dysfunction. And we're not talking about the small percentage that we're seeing with financial. We're talking about 15, 20% of women that are using a drug.
You said this before, too.
Say that again?
You said this before.
Yeah.
You said this before. Now, let me ask you something. So what? So people are jumping off a bridge. Am I going to jump off a bridge? So what if other people are putting themselves in risk?
No. I don't. No, I'm not saying that it justifies it. I'm saying that we're talking about a very, very small percentage of guys, and I think that you're smart. If you are so hyper concerned about the possibility of having adverse side effects, then don't take it. There's no reason for you to take it. But I think when the population of guys that are coming out there online who are saying that this drug needs to be banned, whatever it is, the bottom line is there is so much more damage being done allegedly by, the use of birth control than finasteride.
No. Even if you were to take birth control out of the equation, it's helping so many people. It's helping so many people. This is I think this is the closest thing to reality of stopping hair loss. It's finasteride and dutasteride.
Right.
It's just so unfortunate that there is such a God's playing games with us. You know what I'm saying? He gives us something which could really help solve the situation. And he's saying just a small percentage of people are going crazy on it. Go ahead, do it, take it or don't take it. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, I want to lead up to the point because I went on too many tangents. What I'm trying to say is my whole game it's only forecasting for the next 10, 15 years. After 10, 15 years, I plan on stopping all this stuff and reevaluating my regime. It might mean to continue some of this stuff, but overall, for me, it's like people say you take minoxidil, you take it for the rest of your life. Yeah, in theory, you will take it for the rest of your life, but realistically, you're not going to. Because I really hope in 20 years from now, minoxidil is not going to be will not be in my arsenal for stopping hair loss.
Well, I don't think it will be.
We're going to exist 20 years from now.
That's what I'm saying. So technically, you're not taking minoxidil for the rest of your life. You're not. And this stuff will all change. I'm not going to be putting EMU oil for the rest of my life. It's just so I can really stay clear and keep a nice, good-looking head of hair. Because when things start becoming more realistic, then I'll be able to have those resources. Because I'm certain, whatever comes out there, it's better to have than not to have. Well, and I guarantee a lot of those treatments will say, if you don't have hair, it's much harder.
Hey, Sam, I'm going to tell you this, that I certainly appreciate the fact that you do not want to put this drug, finasteride, in your body for even the short-term use. And, I think that is that's a choice that I think is reasonable. However, I also think that, by some of the stuff that's being put out there online, I think that there are guys who may not be in a situation like you, who have much more of an aggressive hair loss, who have much more of a chance of becoming a Norwood 5 or 6 by the age of 30. 100%. I do believe 100%. That they're doing themselves a great disservice by not at least taking a closer look at this drug.
That's a very good point, Spencer. And if I get to that stage, I might consider it as well. That's the truth. Because right now, I'm telling myself, I don't need to. The amount I have to gain from other regimes, and I want to let everyone know about other regimes. When you're going on a regime, you really have to think of it. Can I consistently do this for the next 10, 15 years? Because that's how, for me, that's how, again, and I got on a tangent before, what I was saying was, that's what I'm doing. I'm constantly trying to try new things. Now, I would like to try everything. Because you know what? Then I get smarter. And then I understand what works, what doesn't. And I get to pick up on certain patterns. It's not just trying one thing, it doesn't work, jump out the window. And you have to understand also that this stuff, again, everyone knows this, it takes time. So you got to commit to a regime and be confident for 6 months, for 7 months. Then you reassess. You got to continue reassessing. Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Listen, Sam, you make a lot of sense, and I appreciate the fact, I love hearing a young guy like you who is, kind of come to terms with what he's dealing with. And, you've made a decision. You are not a guy that is panicking. You're not a guy that is jumping into surgical hair restoration or taking dutasteride and there's a lot of guys that are out there who will jump into that. You're also a guy, from what I sense, that if for some reason things progress, as fucked up as it is, you can deal with it and you will get past it. And I
eventually, yeah, I will, because I realize that it's a happy ending. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't see people 6 years old, full-blown Norwoods, crying themselves to sleep every night. People live a happy, successful life.
It's a happy ending. You're delirious, Sam, or what?
Very funny, Joe.
No, Joe, listen, Joe, you are a guy, and like I say, you speak for so many hair loss sufferers, but Sam does too. Yeah. Sam has his own opinion, and Sam is a young guy who believes that, hair loss sucks, but he could still be successful even if he's a bald guy. And there's a lot of people out there that are successful and live good lives.
I'm speaking again. I want to say one more thing before we let go.
All right, let Joe speak. Let Joe speak, and then I'll
go ahead. From Bald Chap from Great Britain, he's begging me to ask you this question as a respect to our British people, not your own UK show. May I ask this for Bald Chap?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
He's very worried. He uses hair fibers every day on his head. He wants to know your expert opinion. Is that safe?
What do you say?
There is a school of thought. There's a school of thought of the use of hair fibers because there's silicone that in most hair fiber products that it contains silicone. I've been breathing in hairspray for a long time. I've used hair fibers. I currently use Dermatch. I don't know what the reality is. I have never known anyone who's used hair fibers for a long period of time that's suffered any type of, lung issues or cancer or whatever it is. But I guess it's always a possibility. My suggestion would be to wear, while you're applying these fibers, to maybe wear a painter's mask or perhaps a handkerchief around your face, which seems bizarre, but I do that now when I spray my hair. Because I breathed in so much hairspray over the years, I've chosen to kind of cover my mouth and face when I spray my hair. So I don't think that's a bad option.
Very, very.
Joe, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I kind of missed the beginning of the show, but Allegan, any good updates? Any news? Any reports? Anything going on there?
Yes. Give me 1 minute to explain. Last week, February 8th, Allegan had its conference call. First question asked by reporters was, what's the status on Latisse? David Packard said, no comment. It will soon be on clinicaltrials.gov within the first half of January 2013. He did not say what it does, what it doesn't do. He would not answer any questions, which leads me to believe, in my expert opinion, that something's up. I have no evidence of this, so please, haters, don't quote me. It's just my opinion.
All right, guys, listen, Sam, thank you so much for the call, as usual.
No problem, Spencer. It's always a pleasure, Spencer.
Yeah, you're a great caller, and I appreciate everything you bring to the program. Thanks a lot.
Spencer, about the other thing I spoke to you about the other time, if you ever see something that's really excited, if you ever seem really excited to do something like that, you can always hit me up. I'd be glad.
You know what? I will hit you up. I will tell you this, and I'm not going to get into the specifics because you asked me not to. I think it's going to be more difficult than you think, and I'm kind of like confused at exactly what you want to do. But I have.
It's a very raw idea. The idea is that if you feel like that, I can talk about it briefly, but if you feel like that this world of the internet, with respect to hair loss, is a little, and that's my experience when I was surfing. It's just so hard to kind of filter out who's legitimate and who's not. So I mean. The exact logistics, that's to come if there's interest. But if there's interest, perhaps you could construct some way of filtering out the illegitimate information from the legitimate information.
I can tell you that it would be practically impossible. No matter how you program the system, it's going to be practically impossible because there will be companies that will try to infiltrate, what you're doing. And we can talk about that more at length, but we shouldn't talk about that on the air. All right, man. Listen,
guys,
good luck.
I'm going to let you guys go.
All right, take care.
But Spencer, thank you very much. Joe, thank you very much. And take care, guys.
You got it.
Thank you. Spencer, are you auditioning a new sidekick when I pass?
No, I'm not. But you know what? I think he's a reasonable caller he's very interested in the whole process and the whole hair loss world. Yeah, I mean, I see you're right that he sounds a little nervous. He's just kind of like a fast talker. So I think you need to give him a break. He's a young guy, man. Maybe he's a little nervous.
No, I'm not criticizing him. He seems a little nervous. I I'm not a physician, but I would recommend he takes some type of sedation.
Well, you know what? He's young. You and I drink on the air. We drink all the time.
I don't drink, just pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Joe, listen, man.
You're auditioning a sidekick, Spencer.
I am not. He's a good kid. I appreciate the fact that he takes the time to call. He's a fan of the show. He calls a free-for-all. He's a nice guy.
People, one more quick thing. I'm only kidding, Spencer. People are insisting I have inside information knowledge. No, I do not. That's a fact.
All right, there's a guy in the chat room who wants to know if I ever get dandruff. I rarely get dandruff. I have gotten dandruff maybe twice in my life, and I have never gotten dandruff as an adult. So the answer is no. It's very rare.
Well, Spencer, I hope you recovered from last week that you were ill. I didn't call you. I wanted to disturb you, but I just hope you recovered, even though you were attacked in the chat room.
Oh, no, I feel much better. Come on. I'm having fun tonight. I'm drinking and having fun. I feel good.
Spencer, you're not allowed to be sick. You know that. The sufferers won't accept that.
Doesn't that suck? I can't fucking take a day off. I'm not a human being,
Well, you're not. You're a god.
I know. Sure I am.
You're not a human being. You're not a normal human being. You're above you, all of us. You're the leading hair loss expert in the world. Who doesn't claim that, man?
Dude, that's such bullshit. I'm just like the rest of you guys. I just happen to figure out a way to do what I love, to figure out my passion, to get, I have the opportunity to share my experiences and speak to the guys that, I believe that are, just like me. And I feel very fortunate about that. So I'm certainly not a god. I'm like every other hair loss sufferer out there.
No, you're not.
I made this my living. That's all.
I have to castigate you. The god of the hair loss world.
All right, man. Listen, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate the fact that you call in.
Night, man. I don't believe in God. I'm atheist, as you know, but I pray to you, man. Spencer Kobren.
Oh, Jesus. Joe, you make
me
feel...
the guy who'll someday deliver me and millions of sufferers from this horrible disease.
I'll do my best, guys. I'll do my best. Listen, guys, Joe, I'm going to pot you down. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Thank you.
You got it. The website's thebaldtruth.com. Of course, check out baldtruthtalk.com. If you guys want to interact with other hair loss sufferers, check out the #1 most trafficked hair loss website and hair loss forum in the world. That's baldtruthtalk.com. And, I don't say that easily. This has been a tremendous ride. We've started Bald Truth Talk at the end of 2008. It's been about 4 years that we've been online, and we are now the most trafficked hair loss site in the world. So we're very proud of that. So check out baldtruthtalk.com. You want to interact with other hair loss sufferers, learn from each other, share with each other. That is the place to go, baldtruthtalk.com. Also check out AmericanHairLoss.org. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.